2, 1.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's session of Ask Me Anything. I have a few things I'm going to show you. A lot of people have been asking for some sneak peeks and what's coming up and when it's coming out. So I have a few things to show you while we wait for some questions. That's coming out next month. And then I have a sneak peek of something that's coming out after the first of the year. So probably in the first half of January. We're working on it right now, so it's not finished, but it's kind of a work in progress, and it's really cool. So while we wait for the first couple questions, I've been getting questions on digitizing realistic animals for, I don't know, 20 years. So it's always been, where are the dogs, where are the cats? And I know we did dog portraits a while back, and here's how it happens. So as soon as we do one dog, then it becomes a whole different conversation, because now we opened the door. And then it becomes, what about my dog? And, I had dogs for a long time, and it's always like, well, not quite 100% your dog, so you can change the thread colors to match. So either way, we did a few rounds of dog portraits of, popular breeds. We'll probably down the road do even more. And of course, as soon as we came out with dog portraits, then it became, where's the cats? So now we finally, pulled a large assortment of realistic cat breeds. Those are coming out next month. So, in a few weeks, actually, and super realistic, different cat breeds. I can zoom in on that.
Zoom.
Oh, you can zoom.
Yep.
There you go. Okay.
Oh, honestly.
Really cool. You can see the back. You can see it's so many different layers of threads and thread colors and different stitch lengths that it truly adds just some realistic detail. And of course, you can color them by choosing different threads to match your cat or your friend's cat, or a gift. They can go on sweatshirts and tote bags and towels and wherever you like. If you have more than one cat, we have way more than one design. So they'll be perfect for any cat lover, especially with Christmas around the corner, to make that great gift. So cats are coming, so you don't have to send those emails anymore about where the cats are. Another one we have coming out is for the holidays. It's called Holiday Spice, and it's really cool. It's kind of a collection that can stay out all winter. It's not just strictly a Christmas collection. So we have a nutcracker. He's got some spices in his basket, and and a little handle right there. The obviously a snowman. He's playing a spice accordion right here, holding a bunch of them right in his hand. Spice tree. We have. You get the idea of the theme here. These are so beautifully digitized. Each little bit of the spices and the oranges are done in super hand detail. I don't know if we could zoom in on this guy right here. So you can kind of see all the detail that's going on here. Again, this is a November release. Looks great on tea towels, holiday decor, table runners, napkins, anything like that. So that's another sneak peek of what's coming out in a few weeks. Now, for January, we did the Last Supper, I'm going to say 3-4 years ago now, and that was our most requested tile scene ever. It was like, I would show a Santa Claus scene, and people would say in an event, "What about the Last Supper?" And I would do a holiday scene, and they'd say, it'd be great, the Last Supper. And that became like a running thing. When we do events and all the educators would come back, we'd have a meeting and say, people would, I remember you all used to fill out little slips of paper and go in the suggestion box. And along with dogs and cats, it was always Last Supper. So after 10 to 12 years of that as a request, we finally created that. And it was one of the biggest scenes we've ever done. Came out amazing. And then since then, we've had requests, for other, Christian scenes and things like that. So we have 2 of them coming out in January, and they're both in one special edition. And so this is not part of the 365 Club. It's a standalone big release because it's a really large tile scene, but you will be able to purchase that as a pre-order at 50% off. So this will be coming out next month. We could slide that over. I'll kind of sneak peek it. Hold on. I'll show you all once. So we can zoom in here. I mean, first, what we have to notice, and again, it might be a little tricky, like on this live, is that this background, the sky is amazing. It's very Van Gogh-ish with all these. I don't know if that's a proper way to describe it. Swirling colors, and then we get Moses starting to peek out here. So cool. This is, it's truly the parting of the Red Sea, and you have all this stuff, going on here with the smoke and the staff, and everything is shaded in so much detail. It's amazing. That's the prototype. This is not the finished one. Somebody's going to say right away, his robe is two different colors. It is because they messed up the colors. That's how that worked. So we're not. I believe it's all going to be red. So it's going to be redone. We make mistakes too. And then I know all these faces and this and the crowd is going to be redone too. But the detail on this is extraordinary. It's truly an art piece. The quilt is called Exodus, and there's another part to it as well, but I'm not going to show you that quite yet. But it will be soon. So that's kind of a sneak peek. This is a special edition coming out in January. And again, anybody that's a 365 member will be able to pre-order this for half off. So it'll retail for $99.95. So essentially you'll be getting the opportunity for this tile scene for $50. So it's pretty easy. I love it. 9 block. And the detail, like I said, is unlike
in person is amazing.
It's amazing. Like the swirling stitches, it's so beautifully done. Colors are going to change a little bit. Again, this is a prototype, so this is how they all start. We create one, change a bunch of things, try to lighten stitches where they could be done, and then we take it from there. So that's a sneak peek of some stuff that's working on, and that we're working on, and a few others that are coming soon. So now, what kind of questions do we have today?
Let's start off with the first one. What size are the tile blocks when we release them? Do they come in a standard section amount of sizes, or?
Every time we create a quilt or a tile scene, it's generally in 4 to 5 sizes, depending. So the smallest size for something like this will be 6 by 10. So it's generally like 5.9 by 9.7 is like the actual size that'll fit. So it'll go 6, 7, 8, 9 up into the bigger sizes, which are like 8 by 14 now. So you'll get, each one comes in multiple sizes. So you could pick the size according to your hoop. That's all included with the same design. It's not. So if you purchase something, even if you purchased something 5 years ago and you had a machine that can only do, say, a 6 by 10, and you buy a new machine, the designs are included there. So as you maybe the hoops get bigger, we've included larger sizes, so the collections can kind of grow with you. You can always stitch the larger version later, maybe when you'll have a bigger machine.
All right. So we're getting a lot of positive comments about how beautiful Moses is, the tile work, and the colors. So lots of comments about more tile scenes, please.
Oh yeah, well, there's another one that's coming with this one, and there are more in the works. So that's something we've never stopped doing. You're going to get some smaller tile scenes that'll be in, maybe 4 block ones and 365, and then you're going to get some of these larger ones. And that's it's something we've always done. I mean, I think I did my first tile scene. It's got to be 19 years ago, and the reason is because the hoops were never big enough to kind of make something big without it being a quilt. And I don't know how many we have right now at Anita, at least like 40 or 50, probably 50 different tile scenes. And this is the newest one, Exodus. It's truly amazing. I wish that this camera could show the detail, but we'll be posting some close-ups and like macro shots soon. I don't even want anybody to see it anymore. I'll hide it.
Get rid of it. All right. Some designs call for stiffener, not stabilizer. What is stiffener?
Okay. So stabilizer is basically if I take this is just a piece of white felt. And behind it, we have a piece of tearaway stabilizer. I could easily tell because if it was cut away, you couldn't just tear this away. So I would use tearaway stabilizer on most designs. And then we have, wash away stabilizer, cut away stabilizer, which means you can't rip it. You have to cut it with a pair of scissors, like you would see here on the back of Exodus. This one is a stitch intensive design. So this one has a layer of cutaway stabilizers. This is no show mesh. So now fabric stiffener is different. So what stabilizer does is it gives the thread stability. So if you're stitching on anything, you have to hoop the fabric with something. If a fabric stiffener is generally like an interfacing. So at that point, when I would take a fabric that's really thin, maybe like organza or silk dupioni, something like that, by adding interfacing in. I use it all the time with like silk scarf. So if I'm using a thin silk scarf, I use interfacing on that first, then that makes the fabric just thicker. So it's able to handle thread more without puckering. So depending on the fabric, we'll suggest using like a stiffener or interfacing. And I know we have tutorials and videos of that on our website. We've been doing it since the beginning, and it's truly a game changer for embroidery. Now, it just generally allows you to embroider on fabrics that might be problematic, beforehand. And you would still use stabilizer. It doesn't replace it. It just adds to it.
Deborah asked, is there a possibility or do we provide thread kits for these seams, for these tile seams?
We have not ever provided the thread kit for a tile seam. And it truly becomes, it's not because I wouldn't want to do it. It just becomes super expensive to do. We've priced it a few times, and the issue with that is it's always been for me like all or nothing. And then, okay, so then you'd have to love the thread colors we stitched it in, A, and then B, every time there'd be like a little bit of shading on something, well, I have to include that thread too. So something like this might be 60 spools of thread. Now, predominantly, you're really not using that many colors, but when you start to see like the detail down here, well, you might need this little bit of light red. Well, I mean, everybody that does embroidery has a box full of threads. So you don't have to use that exact light red. Use the light red you have. So then it becomes like, well, we're only including some of the threads. And then those threads are meant to go with the fabric that we're choosing. So it's actually a very complicated equation. If I choose different background fabrics, well, those threads will change to go with the fabrics. So then we'd have to include the fabric and the thread. And then it becomes truly like a supply chain nightmare. We would have the embroidery designs done and the tutorial written, and we'd have to probably delay the release for 6 months to a year to get all these threads and fabrics in. It's truly very complicated. To do that, that's why most of the thread kits and fabric kits you see are for very basic projects. A few thread colors, a few pieces of fabric, but not something like this. That being said, it's not hard to pick your own colors. That's the whole idea, and we plan on doing more videos of that after a while. I mean, like dominantly, you have about 8 or 10 colors in this whole design, and then honestly, the colors that you shade the rocks in might not make that much of a difference. It depends on the gray fabric you pick. So a lot of what you see here is actually applique fabric with light stitching above it. And you don't have to strictly stick to what we have. You can see here how they messed this whole thing up, where these colors are done correctly, and then these all of a sudden they turn blue. That's because you can see the fabric in the background, and they picked the wrong colors for fabric. So this is all like a white applique, and that allows you to use less stitching. So, so in a nutshell, no, we're not doing kits right now because I think it just makes it more confusing in a lot of ways. Like we say we would want it, but all of a sudden this $99 collection at full retail would cost $300 instead of you using the thread you have. So we will do more tutorials on how we choose thread.
So that kind of goes along with my next question of, would we possibly add thread suggestions to tutorials? An example of the thread that we maybe used that we thought made a really big pop
Yes,
on the design? Would that something we would be?
So the threads we use, the exact colors and the exact thread is included with every tutorial we've ever written.
Oh, no.
So that is there. So we will say for this one, we used Floriani red, fire engine red or whatever it might be called. Now I know you could Google online, like embroidery thread conversion chart. So you could type in, if ours is, Floriani fire engine red and you have Robus and Anton, you'll see what the conversion is for the brand you have to match it as close as you can. So those have been available. I wish we were able to say this red would be this way across every brand, but they're not. There's no uniform coloring. So the red from Floriani or Madeira or Robus and Anton, they can all be kind of different shades of that red. And it's we tell you exactly what we use, but we also tell you to use what you use instead of having to purchase all new thread.
Great. So if you buy the design, then it comes with this.
Yep,
exact
always
threads
does.
that
The
we
exact
used.
threads we used, and it actually shows fabric swatches of the applique fabrics we used.
Wonderful. Next question. I have a scan and cut. Does Anita ever work with cutting machines?
That's a great question. We have scan and cuts as well as a Cricut and a laser cutter, and they all basically work off the same technology, which is like vector cutouts that are used. You can cut vinyl, paper, whatever you want. We actually use ours all the time. We don't really have much to use with it, and I think the problem with that is there is literally a million designs you can download for free online. So for us, it's really difficult to compete and to design products where there's thousands of free ones, because basically it's just a vector. So if you want to do a pumpkin and you went online and said pumpkin vectors for a Cricut or a scan and cut, you'll get hundreds of them you can just download. So that's kind of made it difficult, and to use them as appliques, because basically we hand cut all of our appliques. We always have. We don't use pre-cut out pieces because believe it or not, they're not faster. It's more problematic because your chances of stitching that applique down by placing it wrong or it's shifting generally messes things up way more than if you just hand cut it. So we've talked about doing things for the scan and cut and the Cricut and all those other kinds of cutting machines for a long time. We just haven't really developed it into a collection yet.
Great. Next question comes from Selena. She said, Stephen, can you design a fairy using your butterfly wings as her wings?
I could. That's an easy question.
It's an easy
I
question.
could, but will I? Probably, because it does sound intriguing.
That sounds great.
It's so basically fairies with like a dimensional wing that you could attach on it. So yes, that is something that would be pretty cool. So somebody's just got to remember to write it down, because I may forget about it, just like I almost forgot about this live appearance when they texted me and said, you're going live in 5 minutes. So it's like, there you go.
Raw and uncut here, Anita. Let's see. Next question. Ooh, this is a good one. Where is Taylor and how is Taylor doing?
Taylor's doing amazing right now. He's at High Point, hopefully working in our booth. I just got back from the show yesterday. So this is a show for all interior designers and people in that side of the industry. I work with a lot of interior designers. And so I was there at the show Saturday and Sunday, did a book signing and all that. And Taylor and Lauren, who much of you know, love to travel and work in the booth. So they're in the booth right now. I know he just texted me with questions. So I would imagine he's still there. So if anybody happens to be an interior designer, you can visit Taylor in High Point up until tomorrow.
Yep, and they're doing stuff for Stephen Wilson's studio. This
Yes.
is not a Anita Goodesign
No,
event, so
right
don't
now.
be fearful that you missed out on something, because we would definitely let you guys know.
No, and I know Taylor is going to do the live with me. I think next week we're going to have him on.
Yeah, I think we're gonna do a really fun live next week.
Yes.
Because it's Halloween, so we've got
Next
some fun-
Tuesday is Halloween itself?
Next Monday.
Next Monday. Okay.
So we've got some fun stuff up our sleeve that everybody should
All right.
stay
I'm
tuned
excited.
for. Let's see. Next question. If you were a brand new embroiderer again, what would be the things that you would start off with, the things that you just cannot live without?
All right. If I'm brand new, starting out now, it in a way, it's a lot easier than it was when I started out with no internet. So most of you all probably remember the days with no internet, and when you were committed to learning something, it was really hard, and you had to really be committed because it was really easy to give up. You didn't even know if what you were doing was right because there was no way to look up like who was doing it right. So and in that respect, it's much easier to start out now. I would give the same advice I gave someone then, is to buy the best machine that you can. So a lot of times we're starting out and we do, people start out with the entry level machine, which is smaller, and then we see things that could be done. And most of the time, when you see something online or that we're doing, it's generally done with the top of line machine. So that's the one thing that when you start out with any hobby, it's generally harder to do it with an entry level machine. So I get it that everybody can't afford a top of the line machine, but they were asking me what I would do again. And before I started out with like a single color machine that was a commercial machine, but one needle, and immediately regretted it. And then wound up getting your next machine up, which was again commercial, but had a smaller hoop size, and then like immediately regretted that because all the things that usually the bigger the machine, the more technology it has, and the easier it is to use because I mean I guess that's just the way everything is, and like a lot of the things you want to do that are really difficult, say on an entry level single needle tabletop machine, would be really easy to do on a 10 needle machine. So if you truly want to do it, that usually that difference in price between the two, I'm not saying it's not substantial, but it's definitely the way to start. Where I more or less ratcheted up, um, which I guess is what most people do. Even digitizing software, I got the one with no features, and like right away, I'm like, I wish I would have got the features. So I wound up buying things a lot of the time twice or three times instead of just like choosing the right one the first time. Um, so that's something I would definitely do. And starting again, and the other thing that I would do starting again um, would be to just like not worry about things as much. I tended to worry about like every little detail of every design when I was creating things and stitching things back when it was like before I was digitizing. It was more of an embroidery business, and I think in hindsight it would have been like have fun more and not stress out, which might still be a mantra I might adapt into my current lifestyle. But yeah, I'm like a detail obsessed oriented person, which sometimes is not the best way to be, but most of the time it is. So yeah, I used to obsess about every little detail, and then I would go down like these rabbit holes of trying to figure it out myself. And now I could just probably Google it and figure it out much easier.
Gotcha. Next question. Donna asks, can I have a job?
Well, I always say, Donna, be careful what you wish for.
Come on, Donna.
Because
come on down.
I mean, we do tours pretty much every day. Somebody's stopping in either on the studio side or Anita's side. And it's true. It does look like a crafter's dream. There's, aisles of fabric and thread and machines everywhere and lasers cutting and people snipping and cutting tables. So yes, it's creative every day. But that being said, it's still a job. So there are days where, we have to be creative no matter what. And sometimes like after I just work whatever 10 days straight at a show, I have to come back and design a collection or make an art piece. So it is a job. I mean, I think hobbies are hobbies, and that's what makes them fun, is because you don't have to do it tomorrow. You could say, oh, I don't feel like embroidering today. Well, if you work here, you kind of have no choice. You're embroidering today, whether you like it or not. But yeah, you're more than welcome to stop by and check it out. That goes for everybody. If you're in the Charlotte region, be sure to set up an appointment for a tour because we love giving them, and we love when people stop by.
Great. Next question. How happy are customers about the 365 Club?
Well, they seem pretty happy. It's going to be an exciting club. It's the designs and projects that I'm designing are I think they're pretty amazing. There's every aspect. Obviously, I do. You might be asking the wrong person because I really do have a biased opinion here. So I just wrote, a letter to all club members that are all access members that will be in the last issue, and 365 is our fourth club in basically 19 years. So I think everything has like, in a lifespan, Diamond Club and Quilting Club VIP, we did all access, now 365. And I think as technology changes, as machines change, as the way we embroider changes, and as our product line and like vast library of projects and designs changes, I kind of, designed the next one for the next step. So I like change. I think it's invigorating, and I think the club's going to be really exciting. And I like the element of the surprise, like, we're showing you this today and you can download it today, as opposed to watching a Star Wars, preview in the movie theater, and it's like coming in 2024. And it's like, okay, like I'm trying to figure out how old I'm going to be when some of these things come out, when I see them too far in advance. So I like the immediacy of this new club and all the things that are going to come with it. But again, it is a biased opinion because I kind of thought of it myself in a lot of ways. So everybody seems pretty happy so far. If not, they haven't written us saying otherwise. Until now, maybe. I don't know. Maybe she's Haley's got some news I don't know about.
No, I think we are doing just fine over here. Do you ever create designs and then keep them for yourself, or is everything that you do?
There are designs I create that nobody gets, that I don't like, and they go right in the garbage. No, truly, there's a couple I'm looking at right now that are just duds. It's just that, I have the vision in my head. As far as like an art piece goes, I have a vision. I think it's going to be amazing. I make it, and it's not amazing. So the true judge of that is whether someone buys it or not. And there's always a few that just didn't hit the mark. And I'm sure when we're working on things for Anita, same thing. We're like, we stitch it, doesn't look good. It could wind up never being shown or pushed back or revisited later. But I don't think I've ever made something and kept it for myself, which is a problem in my household, because I'll take things home and we'll hang them in the house, and then I'll sell them, and then they'll disappear. And I actually, this is a pretty good story, because I had an art piece hanging above my daughter's changing table. It was pink and big flower and all that, and my daughter Ren loved it. So every time I would change her diaper, which was way too often, thankfully that's long past. Not that long, but because I just changed my last diaper a month ago with my son, but we're finally done. And I can't even tell you how excited I am about that. I might be more excited about that than the new club, because it's 6 years straight of diapers. That's gone. So no, the club is still more exciting. But so this art piece is behind her changing table. She would look at it every day, and all this other stuff. And I have a friend who was an art dealer, and they said, you have that art piece in your house, and it just tripled in value over the last 5 years. Would you ever think about selling it? And it was like, well, it's in my daughter's room right now. It was there since she was a baby, and she's 3 now. And, so I sold it. And then she comes home one day, and it was a piece of my art hanging there instead of this other art. And she goes, Dad, where's that Murakami piece that was hanging up there? I go, well, I sold it, but you have one of my butterflies. And then she cried for like 2 days. She didn't really want mine, and she'll still bring it up. So, but to me, like as a creator, once I make it, that's kind of like, then it is done, and I want to put it out in the world. So I've never made like a piece of art for myself with the intention of keeping it myself. And it's same for a quilt. Like if I design a quilt or an Anita project, I want to give it to the sales team or people that take it to events to show it to people. I think it's the same with anybody that does something with a trade. It's like, for me, the joy comes from letting it go and somebody else having a story with it, as opposed to me keeping it.
Love it. All right, let's wrap up with one last question, and then we will leave this for the rest of the day. Would it be hard to make a panel scene using a quilt as you go? So
Yeah, I get it. So there's a different ways. I know we are working on something like that, that will be in 365 and, first quarter. And basically there's two ways to do like a large scene. The first one is, so these are stitched individually. I'll show you the back. So this is 9 different blocks. They're created and then they're stitched together like a quilt. Just forms a picture instead of a geometric pattern, or if you will. So the quilt as you go, and that style of embroidery is kind of a multi-hooping. So with that, we would stitch an element and then stitch another element and would wind up being seamless. And that being said, I love the idea of like the seamless way. I've done a lot of that work on my art pieces where you don't see a seam. It's just these giant continuous things. I just did a headboard, which will post soon. It's an 80 by 80-inch headboard. I don't recommend it. It's a nightmare. But I just did one because I have the hard time saying no. But if somebody says, well, would you like to do an 80 by 80-inch headboard? Suffice it to say, it is as much work as you think. And 80 inches is lots of embroidery times 80. So that being said, it came out amazing, but it was that style. It was kind of like hoop and stitch and hoop and stitch. So yes, it winds up being seamless, but it's a lot harder to do. See, here's the advantage of doing it this way. If I mess this block up, which they did, I don't have to, I could, totally, obviously mess this up. I don't have to restitch the whole thing. I could just restitch this block and then pull the seams apart and stitch it back together. If you mess up like 2/3 of the way through a multi-hooping, you're done. The whole thing is trashed. So that's the problem, which I found out also with the headboard. And so the headboard had about 3 million stitches in it, like million. And, there was these big areas. And then all of a sudden you're like, why are those leaves all the wrong color? And sure enough, it's like the machine operator forgot, to change the color. So I had to sit there with a stitch eraser trying to buzz all these stitches out of velvet, and it didn't work, and we wound up having to start over. So that's the disadvantage of multi-hooping. That being said, I'm going to do it with some flower designs and things that aren't quite as intense as this. And then at the end, it's really difficult if you want it to be perfectly square. Because the way you hoop the fabric and the way it pulls, you're not adding like a binding or something to the edges. So it is something we're going to teach more of. The parts that make it harder sometimes outweigh the parts that make it look better, because it's almost different overlaps for each different kind of machine and hoop size. So it does truly open up a can of worms in teaching. That being said, I'm doing it because it's a truly beautiful way to embroider, but it does ratchet up the difficulty quite a few levels. So